I am so stinking excited to introduce our next guest. She was actually the first in-person, in-studio guest on the Sober Biz podcast, and I got the pleasure of meeting her at a local networking event. I loved what she was up to. Her name is Nika. She's a soul purpose coach for immigrant daughters, as well as an event planner who's putting on these amazing morning coffee and cacao raves. You're going to hear her whole story and everything she's up to on this episode. Let me know what you think. I can't wait to hear from the community. I know this is going to give you just so much value and so much connection. Here's Nika.
Just don't want to be putting something in my body that is lowering my vibration, because that would be counterintuitive to me wanting to be at a high vibrational state and attracting positive things into my life. So I decided, alcohol no longer fits into what I believe in. And that relates to what I'm doing now, because I'm someone that really believes in like having values that you really live by, like not just saying you care about being at a high vibration or being sustainable or focusing on your wellness, but really walking the talk of that in your actions and in your work and everything like that.
Welcome to the Sober Biz podcast, the show for the bold, the brilliant, and the booze free. Here we talk about building meaningful booze free businesses, turning your mess into your message, and showing up even when you feel like an imposter. This is no fluff and no filters, honest conversations for alcohol free entrepreneurs who want to make an impact.
And so I remember when I went sober 8 years ago, there wasn't really a lot of events where it felt like you could build community and connect in a sober environment. And I was also quite young. I was 21 when I once became sober. Like I never really started drinking, so that was good for me. And so I felt a little lonely amongst my peers. And I also felt like there wasn't just really safe, positive spaces where you could be yourself and have fun and be sober. So I went to a lot of other kinds of events, like networking events and things like that. And those were always fun. But I actually went to Bali. And that's when I really saw this trend of like sober partying happening. And the context of me going to Bali was that I had just gone out of a breakup. I was really on my eat, pray, love journey, like finding myself again. And so I was like, well, I'm finally going to go to Bali. Like I always wanted to go. And that's when I first experienced a cacao ceremony. And basically a cacao ceremony is based off of the Mayan and Aztec tradition of consuming cacao as a heart opener. And it comes from those indigenous roots, but it also has been modified in different ways for like the modern market and the Western market, I would say. And basically, what we did was we really intentionally drank cups of cacao, and then we danced. There were drums, like live drums playing, and we were just dancing around. And I was like, wow, this is so fun. And what a concept to party like that. And during my time in Bali, I experienced a variety of parties like this where there were, yes, like coffee and cacao being served, sometimes kombucha, basically wellness focused drinks. And I was like, this is awesome, because I think that if we're putting drinks into our body, they should at least promote wellness in some way. And so I went to a couple of these parties, and I came back to Canada and then I traveled again. But long story short is I had to come back to Canada in March of this year, and I had gone to Bali, but only for a day. It was supposed to be a week in Bali, and then I had a big breakup again in Bali this time. And so I had to like leave Bali on this short notice, and I was really upset about it. And I came back to Canada and I thought, well, I can either be upset that I'm not in Bali, or I could try to recreate what I love about Bali and those experiences in Canada. And I kept thinking, well, someone else should do it. Like, surely someone will plan something. And then I was like, you know what? I have events experience. I love events. Like, why don't I give it a shot? And so that is how this idea of coffee and cacao rave came about. Is I saw this experience happening in other places in the world like Bali, and I thought, you know what? We're going to bring it to Canada. And so then yeah, Coffee and Cacao Rave was born. And the concept is we have a morning party, a sober morning party, where people can have a joyful and positive morning experience. They can have the fun of a party with DJs and dancing. and also bringing in my other values. I talked about values earlier. So, my other values are sustainability. So, I work with a lot of vendors and businesses that value sustainability, and I try to showcase them. So, I have a community market on the side of the party where we have these brands that are either zero waste or they use like reusable and sustainable practices in their businesses, a lot of handmade and low waste products. So we bring in sustainability there. We also bring it in through everyone bringing their own mugs. And so that's also another way of reducing single use disposable plastics and things that are really dominant in the events industry that I wanted to really bring sustainability to. And then the other aspect of it is just wellness. And so we have different wellness elixirs. Like, well, we have cacao, but the cacao is also infused with functional mushrooms that
Oh,
help
wow.
with things like energy and focus and brain health and things like that, like lion's mane, cordyceps. So that's actually infused into our cacao. And then just other awesome, healthy foods and drinks that we have sponsors for, which is really fun. And so those values, sustainability, wellness, and community, basically come together in this event concept. And another fun thing is it's a different theme each time. So the first one was this black and white theme. The second one was cherry. The third one was mermaid.
I love
And
it.
the fourth one is 2000s. So throwing it back. And then the next one's a pumpkin spice and friendsgiving kind of theme. So anyway, I basically just like created something I wish existed in this concept, and I really want to promote this idea that you can have fun, and your fun can be promoting your wellness rather than taking away from it,
Yeah.
by being in the morning, by being sober, by being focused on community and things like that. So that is what Coffee and Cacao Rave is all about.
That is so incredible. I think like the best things are born out of that where you see like I want this to exist in the world so bad and in our
Yeah.
world out here in our little piece of Canada. And yeah, to bring that there is amazing. And I'm guessing in Bali they weren't doing like themed ceremonies. No.
No, no, no. I added my own spins into it, but something they were doing in Bali that I would like to replicate as well is having more of a wellness focus in terms of the experience, like sauna and cold plunge and things like
Right.
that. It's a little bit easier to do that outdoors there because they
Yeah.
have these like outdoor spas and things. But I'm looking at potentially working with like saunas and spas here, and then doing a thing where it's like the party starts off with, you know, a cold plunge or just a sauna, and then you dance and then
Yes.
things like that. So we'll see what we can do there, but really big trend these days actually. And
Yeah.
also Gen Z, which is the generation born from 1995 onwards, is really into this like sober wellness kind of partying culture. Like we see coffee raves actually popping up a lot.
Yeah.
And then now these wellness experiences, I think they've surged like 400%. I was reading on Eventbrite organizers, um, like Instagram posts that said that. So yeah, basically there's a lot of demand for this, which is exciting. Like it's not just like something I love, but something that people want to be a part of, which is really affirming and reassuring.
Yes.
And yeah.
That is so amazing. So you sobered up 8 years ago, early 20s. Okay, so you spent your whole 20s basically without alcohol, and that is becoming a trend more and more with young people. That's incredible. So what brought you to that point where you're like, you know what, this isn't for me anymore? Was it like a decision based on your health and wellness, or was it like just not working in your life? How was that decision made?
Yeah, so I did drink from like 18 to 21, I would say, and I drank pretty heavily. I was in a sorority and I was at UBC, and so I
Oh
was
yeah.
partying quite a bit. And when I moved away, so I finished my undergrad degree and then I went to do my master's in Ottawa. And when I moved away, I was finally away from home and I felt like I was making some of my own decisions and really like growing into becoming an adult. And then, as I said, I had this spiritual awakening that felt like, wow, like now I'm learning more about how the world works and how reality is created and all of that. I got into manifestation and I also got into health and wellness. Like I
Hmm.
finally was like, okay, I'm becoming an adult now. Like it's time for me to start going to the gym and starting to take my life like more seriously. And so I just saw people around me drinking and I just was like, that's not really for me. Like
Yeah.
I don't want to be so out of my body. And then and then learning more about how different spiritual practices view alcohol. A lot of them view it as a depressant or as something that's lowering your vibration, basically. And so I was like, well, I don't really fall into any specific spiritual belief, but I do believe generally in energy
Yeah.
and those things. And so then I was like, well, if I believe that, then I don't really need to be drinking anymore. It was also my confidence growing in myself. Um, yeah, I think in my teen years, and I think we all kind of feel this way to an extent, is we feel a little bit awkward and we feel more peer pressured. And
Right.
then I think that as I had this awakening about my own spirituality, my own values and personal growth, I was like, well, I want to feel more confident just being myself, and I don't
Mhm.
really feel the need to prove to anyone else that I need to fit in or be cool or anything. I already didn't really fit in at this point with the other people in my master's degree program. I was actually in a degree for international affairs. I
Wow.
was going to school to become like a diplomat or a government professional, and I actually did pursue that career path until I was 27. So I actually was in that for a while, but yeah, a lot of that and a lot of the networking that happens, like, in the political world and all
Mhm.
in Ottawa is very based around alcohol, so it was really weird to them that I was deciding not to drink. But then I was like, "Well, that's okay, I don't really wanna fit in with you guys anyway." So yeah, so then, I moved to Toronto eventually, and I left that career, and then I moved back here, but that's basically the story of,
Well,
how I made that decision.
that's really amazing that you can actually have that awareness and see that, and that the conversation's changing enough that that's even a possibility to see. Because I know when I was growing up, it was like, you aren't able to have fun unless you're poisoning your body with something, whether it's food or
Yeah.
alcohol or other kinds of substances, like, that is part of connection and part of fun, and it's just, like, ingrained in you and marketed to you so heavily, and I love that. Probably with social media, I'm guessing, is why this conversation is getting bigger, where it's like, "Wait a minute, we're being sold a lie, like, we don't have to
Mhm.
poison our bodies in order to connect with each other, in order to find joy and to relax and relieve stress," and all of these things that we've been told.
Exactly. That's
Mhm.
a big thing you touched on there is basically poisoning or numbing your body. I feel that a lot of people feel uncomfortable in their body or with their emotions, and we don't have these like emotional regulation tools at our hands, or we haven't really been taught that in school or anything. And so we tend to go for food or fast food or alcohol and different things like that to basically numb or suppress the emotions that we're feeling. And then when I started my personal growth journey and my fitness journey as well, I was like, well, now I'm really learning to let these emotions out in a healthy way. I'm learning to let these emotions out through exercise, and I'm learning to understand the cause of emotional eating, for example. I
Mm.
actually went through a weight loss journey as well, multiple times throughout my 20s, but also during this time where I was like, okay, the reason I'm gaining weight is because when I feel sadness, I'm going for a bag of chips, or when I feel stress is actually the chips, sadness is kind of like the sweets,
Mm.
which is interesting actually to learn about. When you're craving something crunchy, you're actually craving a release of like stress. Yeah, so
Wow.
I learned about all those things. I was, like, over here researching, Googling, and learning all all of these things because I was curious because I really care about personal development, and, once I learned that, I was like, "Okay, now I can find healthy ways of dealing with these things rather than trying to numb them like my peers were doing," and it was lonely though, I will say that.
Yeah.
It was a lonely journey, and I actually just was like, "Well, I'm lonely," but then that made me want to build community. So I really see this also, I see this in my astrology. I do soul purpose readings. Actually, that's another business I have is coaching and soul purpose coaching. And in my greatest wound in this lifetime is related to friendship and community and all of that. And it's almost like because I felt like I didn't really belong, then I was even more passionate about building community because I was like, well, there's people like me probably that feel like they don't belong. So let's
Yeah.
have a party. And beyond parties, though, I've done other things. Like I was doing these business brunches back in Toronto where I was like, hey, where's the other woman in business that want to just meet other women that are building cool business ideas?
Yeah.
So I would do these business brunches and we would strategize. And it was really fun and sober and also vegan. Veganism is another value of mine. So bringing in more like plant-based foods and things like that. So yeah, that's the story of how I learned not to numb my emotions, but then that made me a little lonely, but then I built community. So it all, ties in together.
That's incredible. And I know when we first met too, you were talked about being a serial entrepreneur, and it's just that passion and desire, especially when you find things that are working in your life and you're like, wait, we don't have to live this way. Let me
Mhm.
help you get out of this. Um, it's magnetic. Like you really, it comes through. You have a glow about you,
Thank
and
you.
the passion that you have for like just bringing this into the world. It's incredible. I want to know everything you're doing. So you're talking about doing coaching and astrology and life purpose readings. Okay, let's dive into that.
Sure.
I love it.
Sure. So yeah, going back to like the origin story of that as well, started around the same time that I stopped drinking and had this spiritual awakening. And I was like, wow, I've really learned to find ways to build up my own self-worth and self-love from a healthy place. Let me try to help other people with this. And so I got into the coaching world and I started learning about coaching, and I started coaching people, but I didn't really have the confidence to build it into a full business at that point. But then later on, I got certified as a soul purpose coach. And in that process, we learn about Dharma archetypes, we learn about astrology, human design, which are all basically different systems of self understanding and self awareness. You don't have to believe or use all of them, but they're all useful in different ways of understanding. So, for example, astrology will show you some of your greatest strengths and weaknesses and where your wounding is in terms of like what you might face challenges with in this lifetime. So for example, for me, as I said, it was around lessons around friendship and community and collaboration. I tend to be a really independent person, and I tend to be very fiery, like this Aries energy, but I'm learning Libra, which is compromise and collaboration. So that's like one aspect of looking at astrology for soul purpose. Human design is a system that tells you about your energy and whether you're someone that is multi passionate or someone that needs to just focus on one thing, whether you have energy on a consistent basis or your energy depletes but then comes back. It tells you these kinds of details. So I got certified in that because I was like, this is really fascinating and I want to help people with this toolkit. And I started taking coaching clients last year for that. And it's been really rewarding. And now I'm thinking of how do I want to really structure it and who do I want to help? One group I'm really passionate about helping is immigrant daughters. So I'm originally from Iran, that's where I was born, and this dilemma of having my parents understand what I'm trying to do and my sole
Right.
purpose, and basically breaking out of the traditional path that I was on because as I said, I got this master's degree and I was doing this traditional path, and then deviating out of that is takes a lot of courage and it takes a lot of ability to withstand pressure and criticism. And so I want to now coach other immigrant daughters who feel like they have an inkling of what their soul purpose is. It doesn't really fit into a neat box that might make more sense to other people. So they need some reassurance and coaching on how to really navigate that. So, yeah, I call myself a soul purpose coach for immigrant daughters. That's my coaching business.
Wow.
And I'm really excited to take it forward. At the moment, I've been a bit busy with my other business, which is basically events and marketing.
Hmm.
So I help places, coaches with their events and marketing. So right now, one of my clients is this co-working space, the same one that I did my coffee and cacao raves at. They thought that that was a really fun idea and they wanted me to come and help them with all the other events that are happening there and basically help build like a calendar of stuff going on. And so that's one of my businesses and work that I do is I help build the calendar out and I also help market all those individual events and create a strategy around that. So that's I would say what my main business is right now, but the coaching is like really close to my heart and something I really want to bring back out into the world. And I would say the coffee and cacao rave is just really an expression of my values and passions. And I have it as under my coaching business,
Yeah.
but it also has been bringing in all these awesome people into my life to be in any of my other businesses or ventures. So,
That is incredible. I feel like you're building an empire.
oh,
I
thank
just see
you.
so much success for you. Like you light up talking about what you're doing. It's clear you're passionate. I'm really curious to know your human design profile because obsessed. I love
Okay.
human design and astrology so much.
Yeah.
And also, where is your Aries placement? Like, let's talk about a little bit
Sure.
before I let you go, because that just like
Okay,
excited me.
let's get
Yeah.
into the details. So, I am a manifesting generator.
Yes, of course you are. Yeah.
Yeah, multi-passionate for people listening that might not know what that means. Basically, it means you are multi-passionate and you have this constant source of energy that comes from within you, also connected from your sacral through to your throat. So you're someone that likes to kind of like express it through audio and creating and events and things. So it makes sense for me to be a manifesting generator. I'm a 3-5, which is the Great Life Experimenter. So I try a lot of different things. Yeah, as you can probably tell from just this part of my story, I've tried different businesses, I've tried different careers and things. I'm someone that loves to just start and initiate, which leads to your second question around my Aries placements. So my sun, Mercury, and Mars and South Node are all in Aries
Wow.
in the 12th house of the unseen world and spirituality. And yeah, it's quite interesting that they're all there. And then my North Node, where I'm moving towards in this life, is in Libra. And so is my Chiron, which is the wound. And so that's that. My Saturn is in Pisces in the 11th house. So Saturn in the 11th house means lessons around community and friendships and bringing this sense of structure, organization, and discipline into the realm of friendships and community. So that makes sense that I'm doing these structured monthly community building raves. Like it kind of aligns well with Saturn. So I think that's also why it's been going well and it's been going in a flowy and easy direction because it feels like, well, this is literally part of my blueprint of how I came to Earth was with that. So yeah, it's a little bit about that. A bit more of my astrology is my rising is in Taurus, which is an earth sign of sensuality and aesthetics and the pleasures of the earthly worlds. And I love all that too. Like I love color and I love aesthetics and I love playing around with themes, for example, right, with my parties. And then my moon is in Scorpio. Scorpio, the transformation, the death and rebirth, the going deep. So also love all of that. So that's a little bit of like, yeah, my energies
That is
coming together.
so incredible. I'm like, I already want to book a reading with you. So,
Okay.
and I'm sure other people do. So, can you let us
Mhm.
know, like, where can everyone get in touch with you? How can they
For sure.
book a life purpose session? I know a lot of our listeners in our community, they've put down alcohol and like started a life journey. They're like, what do I do now? And what's next? And especially as entrepreneurs that want to like put something into this world. So I can see this being hugely valuable.
Oh,
I'm
thank you very
obsessed with human
much.
design. I learned I'm a projector
Yeah.
6'2", and it's
Okay, I see it.
like it just changed my life because I'm like, "Oh my gosh," like
It helps you
I
understand yourself. It
yeah,
helps you understand why, for example, you might get burnt out or how
exactly.
your energy feels best, And that's why it's useful for soul purpose because it's like you can know the general direction with astrology and the themes, and then the human design is like your day to day, how do you work best? What's your overall structure and profile? So,
Yeah.
yes. So they can check me out on Instagram. My coaching Instagram is nm.coach. So then they can see it there, and I have a link in there that they can book from, and they can just reach out to me there. And then if they'd like to learn about the coffee and cacao rave, they can also find that at Coffee Cacao Rave on Instagram, and then the tickets will be there. So our next one is September 13th, and then the next one is October 11th, and then November 8th. So they're just going to be on the second Saturday of each month
Oh,
at Friends
amazing.
Quarters, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. So consistent structure, but different theme and different sponsors and different vibes to each one. But the overall time and date and location is set.
That's incredible. Well, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming here
Thank
and
you.
sharing all of that you're doing. I'm really excited and I can't wait to just like pump this out there and show the world.
Aw, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.